Hey Freeves Nation, Jordan Page here, and guess what? Special guest here today. This is not Joe Shred.
No, it's Joe Shred. I like that way better. Joe Shred.
No, it's not.
I like that
No,
way
it's
better.
not. This is Josh, Dr. Josh Red. Let's be honest, I bet more than half of you not only know who he is, but already are like obsessed with him on Instagram because he is completely changing the game. He changed my game, he changed my health, and we're here today to talk about the nitty-gritty of how I broke and how he fixed me. So this is my holistic guru, Dr. Josh Red, and one of the most requested videos that I've been getting over the last few months was, what the heck is going on with your health? What is Graves' disease? What happened with your thyroid? What was this crazy freaking diet thing you went on? Did it work? Tell me more. And so we're sitting down with you because I don't know how to answer any of those questions so that you can set the record straight and help anyone who's watching that might be suffering with some of the same things that I was.
I'm excited. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of questions to go through as well.
Oh my gosh. Okay, we're going to show this actually. A lot of questions is being very minimal about this. Look, check this out. I asked you guys on Instagram last night for just, you know, a question or two for Dr. Red, and we have like 20 pages of questions. We won't get to all of them, but we'll get to some goodies. And if you have more questions for Dr. Red that we haven't answered, put them in the comments and I'll like hunt
absolutely.
you down and stalk you. And
We got this. We have a great team that can help answer any questions you have. So
Okay, before we get started, Dr. Josh Red, who the heck are you? Where did you come from? And how did we get here?
So a long time ago, many years ago.
Many moons ago.
It depends right now. Many years ago, I decided whether I should go to medical school or go to chiropractic school. And I decided chiropractic school solely because we learned way more about nutrition there.
And you were innately interested in nutrition.
I had family members that were on medications and their health was just, you know, horrible and nothing was working for them. And I knew just like intuitively, there's got to be more than just pills for symptoms. I want to like dig deeper. I knew that lifestyle and diet and nutrition played a huge role when it came to chronic disease. And I knew that they didn't teach that in medical school. So I completely bailed. And then I went to chiropractic school instead. And then after chiropractic school, I knew I wanted to do functional medicine going into chiropractic school. And so I did that. Never once adjusted a patient.
Really?
No. Like I graduated and then we started our first functional medicine clinic where we saw autoimmune patients from the very get-go.
Right at the beginning.
Yep. And then I did a master's degree in human nutrition and functional medicine. And then I did another master's degree at Johns Hopkins in public health biology, where we learned about stem cells and all sorts of really cool stuff. And then I did a naturopathic medical school just barely and graduated from there. And now I'm doing a residency in regenerative medicine and stem cells.
And I'm lucky that I got dressed today. And you're a pilot.
Yep, I like to fly planes. I have 5 kiddos.
5 kids.
4 of them are gluten intolerant, by the way. I have a history of celiac disease in my family. So the 4 girls are gluten intolerant. My boy just doesn't eat gluten, and he obviously...
He's just part of the gang.
I got a beautiful wife.
And he has a really cool story about his gymnast daughter that I've got to link to your Instagram story. Totally made me cry because I've got gymnasts in my family too. So amazing. And so what we're about to talk about in the rest of this video, he clearly knows what he's talking about.
I hope so.
Yeah.
It's interesting though, like I kept feeling naturopathic medical doctors here and really in a lot of states can prescribe. We have the same prescription rights. We do a lot of different things, but we know way more about botanical medicine. So not only do we have to know about all the pharmacology stuff, we have to know everything about botanical medicine too, and diet and nutrition and lifestyle. So I had tons of opportunities to go back to medical school and I just kept veering because I really feel like when it comes to chronic disease, you have to know about diet, lifestyle, and nutrition. That is the foundation of why we have so many chronic diseases in our country and why so many people are sick. And that was my goal. But when I knew about stem cell medicine and what we were able to do from a regenerative medicine standpoint, that's when I knew I got to do this. It's going to change healthcare for the next 30 years, but that's a different topic.
Another video for another day. So that's his background. Now here's my backstory. First things first, I'll tell you briefly my backstory and then I'm going to turn it to him to explain to you what was going on with me and how he fixed it. Most of you know I have 8 kids and I had those 8 kids in 10 years. And so generally speaking, it's like getting in a car accident 8 times. So I figured any of the ailments I was feeling or just energy issues or funkiness or losing my hair, any of those things, I just attributed to pregnancies and postpartum. For me, I just wasn't getting better. And in 2020, I got the virus really mild, like so mild I almost didn't know I had it, but I did get tested. But then after that, there was a lot of stresses going on in my life. We were moving, I had baby twins, all these things, and I just felt like crap. And weird things started happening. Like I got weird rashes on the back of my hands. Yeah. I got this weird like goiter thing on my eyebrow. I got a weird like salivary gland or something in my jaw that got really big. Just all these weird things. And then I started losing weight. I would lay in bed at night at midnight eating a slice of pizza every night and still wake up like half a pound lighter in the morning, which sounds awesome, but it makes you look like you're emaciated. It was not a healthy weight loss. I was losing my hair. I had brain fog so bad. I had a really hard time finishing sentences, thinking of words. My heart rate was bananas. I remember one time we were walking and my heart rate spiked to 185 just on this like leisurely walk with my kids. And I just felt like I was gonna faint.
Which is really scary, right? For a lot of our Graves patients, when you have a fast heart rate and you feel like your heart has unrhythmatic issues and things are kind of spiraling out of control there, you start to panic and then it gets worse. You have more anxiety, more insomnia, and you're like, what the heck is gonna happen to me? I'm gonna die right here.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, literally I felt like I was going to have a heart attack like all the time. Insomnia, I was having trouble sleeping, but also kind of tired all the time. I started with my family doctor, and also I had this weird pain in my abdomen that was really just getting worse and worse if I would lay a certain way or twist a certain way. So I actually went in for the pain in my abdomen. But while I was there, I was like, well, I have you. And I pull out, I was like, this list of like 20 weird things. But what's funny is none of those things on their own were like enough for me to go to the doctor for, because I felt like all of them were explained by, well, you've got 8 kids. You're homeschooling your kids right now. Or, oh yeah, you're just busy. Or, oh, you've got 9-month-old twins, of course. So I ignored them individually, but that pain in my abdomen allowed me to address them collectively. And that's when he was kind of like, I think we had 2 separate issues going on. And we did. Spoiler alert, the abdomen was, I had like a really bad hernia and really bad diastasis recti, and my guts were like trying to push out of my body. So I got that repaired. In the meantime, they ran some blood panels, but the blood tests that my doctor ran were very different than the blood tests that you guys run, and apparently they were just pretty general. They really didn't tell us a lot. So over the course of 2 years, I had kidney stones removed just completely preemptively. I didn't even need them to. A kidney stent. I had an endoscopy, H. pylori test for ulcers and infections. I had 2 MRIs. I had multiple ultrasounds. I probably filled an entire blood bank with the amount of blood panels that I did. I had surgery going through my jugular to like fix veins, then my ovarian veins, like so many things. And all the while, no answers. And then Dr. Instagram. I started talking about some of my symptoms, and Red River Clinic was tagged like 5 times in a row on a post that I did.
Which brings me a lot of joy, right? When you have other offices, you want to make sure that you have the best quality control out there. And when you take a step back and you kind of oversee that, you want to make sure that the quality's there. So hearing stories like this makes me happy.
It was cool because, and I have to admit something, I'm changed. My dad growing up was in administration at our local hospital. So like Western medicine is all I knew. So I have a great respect for modern medicine. And as a result, I almost had this like disrespect for anything crunchy, wooey, Eastern, holistic.
Which is unfortunate. A lot of people used to have that view. I think a lot of people are shifting over now, but I think both conventional medicine and alternative medicine, there's a win-win for both of them, right? It doesn't have to be one or the other.
In my mind, it was you throw a pill at it, or you have surgery, or your doctor tells you to do certain things, and that's how you fix everything. So when I went into this, that's what I was looking for. But my intuition was telling me that that was only a Band-Aid for the issues. You actually don't know this. I'm about to confess something. At the very, very beginning of my health journey, even before I started doing all the tests and all the surgeries, Red River was tagged, and I went and met with one of your doctors, Dr. Statler, who's a freaking stud, by the way. He's awesome. When I went into that meeting, I was kind of like, well, on Instagram, people said you can fix me. He's like, I think we need to put you on this diet. And as soon as he said the word diet, I was like, I was out of there so fast. Oh, gotta go pick up my kids. Oh my gosh. So
Sorry. Good to meet you.
This is a true story.
That's
I
fantastic.
bailed on that appointment so fast. Okay, not for me. I actually need help. I don't want someone to tell me what to eat. Like, that's so stupid.
Yeah.
So I actually like wrote you guys off. And then almost 2 years later, I came crawling back, desperate in a sandstorm, and you're holding a glass of water. They said, you know what? I've legitimately tried everything else. I'm listening.
That is so common though. So many patients that we have feel like they're crazy, they feel like they're lazy, they've been to a ton of different doctors, they're at their wits' end, and we're essentially their last resort. And they're looking to us for guidance and for answers and for help.
Yeah.
And so that story is not uncommon.
And truthfully, I believe in God's timing, and I don't believe in coincidences, and I believe everything happened for a reason. And for me, I was so stubborn. I needed to get to rock bottom and literally have tried everything else for me to be willing to do it, because it was hard.
For sure.
Ultimately, they settled on the fact that it was my thyroid, Graves' disease. I started with Dr. Red, and he referred me to Dr. Sadler. And what did you guys do? What is Graves' disease, and why did your treatment work?
This is really good because you are in a unique case that you have Graves' disease, right? Most autoimmune thyroid issues are actually Hashimoto's, which is low thyroid. And you have about 10% which are hyperthyroid, which is Graves' disease. And we have so many people who ask about Graves' disease, so this is gonna be fantastic. So Graves' disease is an autoimmune thyroid issue that causes a hyperactive thyroid, and this causes insomnia, restlessness, high heart rate, headaches, so many different symptoms.
Because it's like
Overactive. You have an overactive thyroid hormone, which is the main hormone for your metabolism that's causing tons of issues.
I have an overactive everything, Dr. Red,
I
so
feel like that as well.
it's fitting.
I feel like that as well. But here's the thing, unlike Hashimoto's, Graves can be life-threatening. If you have too severe of Graves' disease, you can actually be so hyperactive that you could have a stroke or heart attack. So like those are very real things that you have to take in consideration. And this is why I'm not like anti-medicine. We want to work with your conventional doctor in detail to make sure, especially in a Graves case, that your thyroid is in check, because it can be life-threatening, and that's the reality of it, right?
Yeah. What I liked is your clinic was the very first clinic that married the two. At my very first appointment, it was said to me, we will only do this in conjunction with your endocrinologist, because the truth is I had severe Graves' disease. You could have like traced my thyroid with a Sharpie. It's like embarrassing almost. I'll roll tape.
When it's really inflamed, your immune system is attacking the thyroid at a rapid pace, and it causes this inflamed thyroid. It also causes systemic inflammation, but you can see that the patient's thyroid is inflamed, and
I lost my voice. You guys remember this. If you go back and watch videos,
You guys recommended Red River Clinic.
I couldn't sing a note or speak longer than a few minutes without losing my voice for like over a year. And I would choke all the time. Just constantly choke. And to find out, I think it was just my thyroid. And that was, again, such a small thing that I always had an excuse for. So Red River said, get yourself a good endocrinologist. And I found one that they really loved and recommended, and it ended up being a great fit. And they put me on some medicine because my levels were so bad in conjunction with this treatment. And I'll have him talk about the treatment in a minute. But what was cool was along the way, I actually ended up swinging hypo because it was working so well that then the medicine was pushing me too far the other way. I was able to completely go off meds by halfway through my treatment and found stability, and I've been stable ever since. So,
which is fantastic. I love that.
Thank you.
So most people will have an autoimmune issue. When they do, your immune system will attack some form of tissue rather than attacking bacteria or a virus or whatever's bad in your body. This is a problem because for you specifically, it was your thyroid and it was causing a ton of issues. Here's another component too. When somebody has an autoimmune issue, their immune system is not only attacking the thyroid tissue, but it's also attacking and causing other issues throughout the body. So it can cause a ton of inflammation. On top of that, your brain can be literally inflamed.
Yeah.
It causes problems with liver dysfunction. It causes problems with the intestinal tract, with blood sugar levels, with hormones. So even if you have an isolated autoimmune issue, you can have systemic issues, and this causes a lot of problems for you from a symptomatic standpoint, but it confuses the living crap out of doctors.
Yes, I can attest.
They'll look at a set of labs and you have all these other symptoms, and it's because you have this like systemic inflammatory issue causing brain problems, liver issues, hormone issues, cortisol defects, intestinal problems. And then those create those problems, but then those problems cause the autoimmune response to flare up more. And it's this vicious cycle, and you feel like you're in this whirlwind of symptoms and nobody knows what in the heck you're doing, and you feel like you're crazy.
Yes.
And really you're not crazy, you're just being totally mismanaged. We could give you pills all day long to manage symptoms, but nothing's being done to this underlying mechanism driving the immune response to freak out and to attack that tissue. That's why it's important to identify those imbalances that are triggering it and then work from there. Your house is on fire, your autoimmune disease is flaring up like crazy, and all we want to do is just turn off the fire alarm. And the fire isn't being addressed. Our whole focus and goal is, okay, what physiological imbalances are causing this immune response to flare up? What hormonal things, what blood sugar things, what intestinal issues, what liver stuff? We want to be as OCD as possible to identify every possible physiological imbalance. And then on top of that, we want to identify every possible dietary trigger or lifestyle trigger, because those things play a role. Emotional triggers play a role. And so every patient might have different triggers that cause us to flare up. And it's our goal to try to find out the exact triggers that are causing it, and then teach that patient how to manage those triggers long term so that they're the expert in their own health.
It's true, because I think for me, it was just dormant, waiting for an excuse to come out. And then I got this virus, but more so. And I feel a little triggered and attacked by the fact that you pointed at me when you said emotional triggers. Okay, so maybe that's true.
Even for me, like, if
true.
I'm going like crazy, that's bad for your health.
Yeah.
You have cortisol, which is a stress hormone. When cortisol is really high, that's one of the top triggers for autoimmune patients. So when we're constantly stressed, we're constantly going, we don't ever have that break to like decompress and let the parasympathetic response kind of take over, that's when we end up being our sickest. We see so many autoimmune patients from all over the world, and we did a study to try to figure out, okay, what is the most common time for autoimmunity to flare up? You want to guess?
Holidays.
Pregnancy.
Pregnancy.
After birth of a child, they could almost pinpoint, like 60% of them could pinpoint.
Like after the birth of the child?
Could pinpoint, like, since that child, I have been incredibly sick. Because the hormone fluctuations and the stress of pregnancy, we have no sleep. We have a lot of individuals where 60% of them actually triggered after birth of a child. But a huge percentage also was just stress. A death of a child, a death of a loved one, too much work, whatever it was, they could almost pinpoint a stressful time during their life that triggered that autoimmune response, and it made it a lot worse. And then once the autoimmune response is triggered, just stress in general can cause this immune response to spiral into a vicious cycle and be hard to manage and hard to get under control.
What did you help me do that led to my remission?
Yeah.
What is it?
The biggest thing is when we look at blood work, we're looking at it differently. A standard doctor might look, oh yeah, you have Graves, here's a medication and that's it. But they're not identifying the mechanism driving the Graves. And so our goal is we now look at the blood work totally different, where we want to identify the specific imbalances that are causing the Graves to trigger. What are the different imbalances that research shows cause an autoimmune response to flare up? And so we're looking at it way deeper. We want to find out that mechanism that's driving it, right? That's first and foremost. Once we do the extensive blood work, then we know that lifestyle issues and dietary issues can play a role. So we like to do a food intolerance test so we know exactly which foods are you eating trigger an immune response, which will in turn trigger the Graves to be worse too. So you can know exactly what those are so that we're not having to guess.
And it wasn't an allergy test. It wasn't like you were scraping my back and putting stuff. I'm going to tell you though, I will give blood all day long, but spitting in all those tubes was the hardest thing I've ever done. It was awful.
Which you're talking about the cortisol stress.
Oh, is that what that was? Oh,
essentially what's happening is you're collecting saliva throughout a full day so that we can see what your cortisol rhythms are, and we can see if that's exacerbating the autoimmune response, which yours 100% unequivocally was.
Maybe a little stress.
But
I need a vacation. Will you please prescribe me like a week in Hawaii? That would be just...
Meditation, decompression, doing whatever we can to minimize the sympathetic response is so vital for the immune response and for our overall health. But rather than guessing, we want to know every single possible thing that could be driving this autoimmune response, and then we just work from there. It's pretty simple. Once you've been doing it for a really long time, finding out, okay, this is the biggest trigger that we're going to work on today, and for the next 30 days, let's work on this. And as we're working on that, we can help make some dietary and lifestyle changes. And then we can retest and make sure that the blood work indicates that that's better. And then we can move to a completely different trigger.
Yeah.
And we start working on cortisol defects or hormonal imbalances or blood sugar imbalances or a methylation problem or an intestinal tract, whichever is important for that specific patient at that time. Every patient's so different. They have different triggers. You can have a Graves patient that comes in and they might have different food intolerances.
Yeah.
They might have different imbalances. They might have different things that are causing it to flare up.
Everyone before you guys was like, you just got to drop dairy and gluten forever. And I was kind of like, I choose joy, so I can't do that. I did have to do that for a while, but in the end, I don't have to. I still can eat gluten and dairy. That wasn't my deeper issue. Whereas I think if I would have just assumed that that was going to heal me and put that on my own treatment plan for the rest of my life, I wouldn't have truly understood what my body actually needed. So I started in January, and it was January 2023. Essentially, it was like 6 months of just a really strict elimination diet. Is that what you call it?
That's a
part
big
of
one.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's part of it.
I went cold turkey on all the crap I was eating, all of the junk I was putting in my drinks in the morning, all the sodas, all the everything, and just ate super clean. And along the way, like you said, it's like it was constant panels to see how I was responding and how I was doing, weekly appointments, just calls, which I actually, that's the only way I could have done it. There's no way I could have been able to go in every week.
We have probably 30% of our patients we've never seen before because they live in Africa.
We've never met. We've never met in person, but we've been talking for like a year. I was like, what the?
I feel like
what in the crap?
Yeah.
I know. Thanks, Instagram. Brings us all together. But it was really hard. And Instagram knows. In fact, I have a couple highlight bubbles about like my healthy food and health journey. If you want to go watch, I cried a lot. And in fact, the first few weeks were extremely hard because I was detoxing.
Oh, for sure.
It was awful.
Just to give you an idea, gluten and dairy can cause what's called a gluteomorphin reaction or a casomorphin reaction, which pings the dopamine response and then triggers this addiction as well. So when you go off of it, some patients, it's no different from a withdrawal symptom as it is someone that's on cocaine or heroin. I'm not kidding you. We just had a patient about 10 days ago. She was like shaking.
Yeah.
She was anxious.
Bad headaches.
Severe headache.
Couldn't sleep.
Sweating.
Rage. Angry.
Yeah.
I've wanted to punch people. But I think it was sugar for me.
It could be.
Yeah.
Sugar pings that dopamine response too. Our food in America has been completely hijacked. The processed food that we're eating purposely has chemicals and preservatives and additives in there to cause that addiction response. This is terrible when it comes to adults. It's 10 times worse when it comes to kids because our kids are literally being targeted. It will make you sick because kids are at the root of this issue and there's nothing that they can do to kind of not want to eat that food over and over again. And this is driving so much disease and so many health problems. And so you as an adult with these severe addictions when it comes to food, not even realizing that it's causing your autoimmune response to be worse, and then you're having to go through essentially hell for the next 2 weeks while you're detoxing. Like, this is real stuff here, right?
Yeah. For me, my treatment was to get all the crap out of my diet, and even on down to table salt, because I learned that I need to be careful with iodine, and iodized salt was making me sicker. Stripped it down. I mean, it was like veggies with no salt, bare chicken, you know, it was no sugar. That you learn, like even the rotisserie chicken at Costco has got additives in it. And so I learned how to read labels. So one of my lowest moments was probably week 2 or 3, and I have never read a label in my life. I was trying to learn how to read these labels, and I was walking through Good Earth trying to find something that sounded good. At the end of the night, I wasn't able to eat my nachos, my 10 p.m. nachos every night. Instagram knows I eat every single night.
That's awesome.
And I started crying, and I texted Dr. Red, and I was just like, I can't do this. I cannot do this. And it was just, I was detoxing. I was low. I was overwhelmed. I was frustrated. And first of all, you and your team walked me through, like, look for this, do this, you got this, gave me some recipes, really held my hand. But more than that, like just the encouragement of like, this is the hardest, give it a little bit longer, and you weren't wrong. I just had to push through. Yeah. Then it kind of became second nature. I got really good at just prepping a bunch of food at the beginning of the week. Another thing you guys beat me up about, which I did not expect, is that I was not eating nearly as often as I needed to. And that is really hard for me as a mom. Forcing myself to eat is a form of self-care that I've never had to do before.
And here's why. When you have blood sugar issues and cortisol defects, your blood sugar levels will drop consistently, and then that will trigger the autoimmune response too. So if you have this like significant caloric deficit and your cells are starving for glucose, that's going to exacerbate the autoimmune response big time. And so it's important to help teach patients to eat really frequently.
Once I got the sugar and the crap out of my system, I honestly didn't crave it anymore. But eating frequently was really hard because I had to train myself that it was self-care.
Some of our worst autoimmune patients are the ones that have like long-term fasting, and I think that's healthy for you. Because that puts so much stress on the adrenal glands, then we have this massive autoimmune flare-up. So it's important to kind of know what your body needs, right? We've never had like a patient with a severe autoimmune disease get sick or worse from eating pretty consistently. We've had patients where fasting has wrecked them because their adrenal glands aren't able to compensate. That's an important factor to remember and to know just to be safe.
Intermittent fasting is such a fad right now, and it works really well for some people. But yes, if you are sick, if you have an autoimmune thing, your story is completely different, which I appreciated because they wrote me my own book. Literally, they like handed me a notebook. Another thing that was interesting was exercise, because everyone told me like, you just, if you don't have energy, if you're not feeling well, you just got to keep exercising. One of the first appointments I had, Dr. Sadler was like, no more exercise. Like, you are absolutely killing yourself, and no cardio. And everyone always says like, keep up your cardio. You think that it's what you should be doing and that it just means you're out of shape. They said, no, that is so much adrenal fatigue and stress, and it's working your heart too hard. And so I took up like much more mild, like strength
way better
training, and I feel 100 times better.
Way better. And here's why. Because if you have low blood sugar levels and you go to the gym and then you exercise and you tax those already low blood sugar levels because of the adrenal dysfunction, then you can increase what's called exercise-induced cytokines, and it flares up the autoimmune response. You need to make sure that you're not over-exercising. In that study that we did to see when did a person's autoimmune response trigger, surprisingly, there was also a big portion that was triggered by a marathon, a triathlon,
training for a really arduous,
because that can induce exercise-induced cytokines. So it's important to know too, what type of exercise triggers the autoimmune response or inflammatory response, and what is that threshold so that you can stay under it. Once the adrenal glands and the blood sugar levels are functioning a lot better, then our patients can go and exercise a ton and they're doing a lot better. But at first, if their blood sugar levels are jacked up, or their cortisol levels are jacked up, or their inflammatory response is really high, exercise might actually be counterintuitive.
I can feel a difference. Now I exercise consistently, probably 4 days a week, and I can make it through an hour-long class. I literally can't even, it almost gives me PTSD to think about how awful I felt when I would exercise before, but I just kept pushing through it because that's what you're supposed to do. It's another reason why it's important to be your own advocate, and if something doesn't feel right, go figure out why. So ultimately, in the end, thanks to, I started out on meds and working with my endocrinologist, went off those after maybe 2 months, and then in the end, removing all these inflammatory foods, all of these inflammatory habits, increasing my sleep, getting better sleep, cutting down on exercise, ironically, eating more often, cleaning up what I was drinking.
And then throughout too, you'll remember where we'll give you specific nutraceuticals that you'll take for specific imbalances that we're going to repair or improve. And so we'll have our patients take those nutraceuticals specifically for the imbalance we're working on, and then we'll retest, make sure that imbalance is improved, and we'll give them a whole new set of nutraceuticals to take. And then once that's improved, we'll just step by step start to improve those imbalances with the nutraceuticals as the patient is doing the dietary changes, as they're doing the lifestyle changes, as we're teaching them and educating them so that they are the expert in their own health. And that's when the magic happens. That's when these patients now are just killing it, doing a lot better, having a lot better quality of life for long term. You can't cure this stuff. It's like, when from an autoimmune standpoint, like, we're not curing it. We're trying to calm and dampen this autoimmune response tremendously as we're teaching you how to keep it in check so that you can, be at an optimal level for as long as.
The day that I found out I was in remission from my Graves, I have it saved on my phone. I walked out of my appointment and just burst into tears in my car because it had been such a journey for such a long time. And truthfully, all the MDs I'd work with did not give me hope that I was going to be able to do that and that it was going to be a big waste. And in the end, there were certain things that they weren't wrong about. I was extremely sick, and I felt like there was a better way for me, and there was. And so I felt like for me, it was the blend of both. And Also along the way, and I do need to note this, I believe because of a lot of the inflammatory things I was having going on in my brain and the brain fog and stuff, I've been living with ADHD most of my life, but I wasn't diagnosed until 36, which ironically is the average age of diagnosis for women. Who knew?
Yeah.
And it got really bad. I really had trouble like even being able to type on my computer. And so along the way, I got healthy enough that I was then able to include some treatment for my ADHD. Now I have 3 doctors, and working in conjunction mostly with your clinic, was able to find a really healthy balance of treating my ADHD medically as well, which I needed. And so I feel like it changed my life entirely in so many ways, but it's because we dug deeper.
Yeah.
Where are we now? I would say let's get to some questions. And that's probably one of the main questions that I guess I'll answer first, and then I'm going to turn all the rest of the questions to you is, am I still on that strict diet, and what does my life look like now? So when I was on this elimination diet is kind of how I refer to it, it was real strict, and I followed it, I would say 95%. There would be times where I just couldn't. Like if I was at a restaurant or I went on a cruise at one point, that was like so. I packed sauces in my suitcase.
I remember that.
Maybe I cried a little because I was so frustrated. So I did my best and I still enjoyed it. But then I came back and just had to kind of start over, which was real hard. Because if you've ever detoxed before, you're motivated to never have to detox again. It is a freaking trip. So where I am now is like slowly along those 6 months, you add foods back into your diet, and then you guys would test me and see how I responded. And today I do not follow that diet fully. However, I've made entire lifestyle changes that will be permanent. Yeah. I'm very selective about my sugar intake, which in fact, I've actually noticed that my knees are kind of creaky lately. And I think it's because we've had a couple birthdays and it's brought my sweet tooth back. And so I can tell immediately that I'm being affected by the sugar that I've had. So I'm going to cut back sugar a little bit.
Which all this is really good, right? Because one of the keys for us is to teach a patient how to recover fast. If they have a flare up, we'll teach you how to go into recovery mode. And every recovery mode is a little bit different from one patient to another. But that's really important. Just to know that, like intuitively, you know, okay, I'm feeling a little bit worse. I'm gonna go back into recovery mode. I'm gonna calm this down and off to the races you go.
Yeah, eat super clean. I need to be eating more often. Heavy on the veggies. Anyway, I just made all these lifestyle changes. I do not even crave bread anymore, even though gluten isn't something I reacted to. It's just an unnecessary thing in my life. So I feel like now I found this really beautiful balance of just the exercise that feels good for me, enjoying food, but most of the time trying to eat fairly clean, enjoying a treat once in a while. And I think for me now, a lot of it is keeping tabs on my environmental stressors and my stress and my sleep and all of that.
I'm excited. Let's make it happen.
Yes!
And we have a lot of questions to go through as well.
Check this out. I asked you guys on Instagram last night for just, you know, a question or two for Dr. Red. We won't get to all of them, but we'll get to some goodies. And if you have more questions for Dr. Red that we haven't answered, put them in the comments.
We have a great team that can help answer any questions you have, so.
Hooray. Okay, let's get to it.